Hey everyone, welcome. There have been three things that you really have to know. Number one, you have to know your algebra because we're going to be wanting you to be able to solve things using your algebra skills that we've taught you in chapter number one. Number two, we want you to know your vocabulary. You got to know the vocabulary. Like when I ask you what's a transversal, you have to know what that is. When I say parallel lines, you have to know what those are. So you got to know your vocabulary. The first part of this lesson will be vocabulary. If you need to pause it and write down the words, that is perfectly all right. And then the last thing you have to be able to do is see what we want you to see. When you get something described, can you draw the picture? So in this chapter, please do yourself a favor. Draw lots of pictures. Did you hear that, parents? Have your students draw lots of pictures. Okay, with that said, let's get started. Let's get started. My computer's not working, everybody. Blank, blank. I don't want it on automatic. I want it this way. Hey, there we go. All right. So, parallel lines. Parallel lines are two lines that are on the same plane and they will never, ever cross. One of the common signals for parallel lines is to put a couple of arrows on them. Sorry, I couldn't make those any smaller. Perpendicular lines are two intersecting lines that form four right angles. Notice, and the right angle is denoted by a square. Once again, sorry I didn't make it smaller. But if you think about it, all four of these angles are 90-degree angles. So geometry, I've found, is in love with two things. First, it loves things that equal each other. It uses that as a fancy word. So we're going to be dealing with congruent angles in here a lot. Congruent angles are angles that equal each other. The second thing that geometry loves, it loves things that add up to 180 degrees. Supplementary angles are angles that add up to 180 degrees. So there are three types of congruent angles. One, vertical angles are congruent. There are angles that are opposite each other. What does that mean? Well, watch this. Notice 2 and 3 are opposite each other. Can you tell which other ones are opposite each other? You guessed it, 1 and 4 are opposite each other. And those are vertical angles. And they are congruent. All right. I told you that geometry loves two things that are congruent to each other and things that add up to 180 degrees. So do you see any supplementary angles? Straight angles are supplementary, so an example would be right here. Angles 1 and 2 are supplementary, means they add up to 180 degrees. See any others? You guessed it. What about 3 and 4? They add up to 180 degrees. See any others? What about this way? 2 and 4 add up to 180 degrees. And one more, 1 and 3. So in the simple cross, we have 3 sets of supplementary angles and 2 sets of vertical angles. Can you find the measurement of the missing angles? Well, I hope you notice that 1 and 3 are congruent because they are vertical angles. Thus, number 3 would be equal to 50 degrees. If you think about this, these are supplementary. Do you remember what they add up to? You guessed it, 180 degrees. So if we do a quick algebra problem, 130 plus 50 equals 180. This is going to be 130. And you could either do that problem again this way, or you could just realize these are vertical angles, and since they are vertical angles, they will equal each other. Yes, everyone, I am aware that I'm messing with you by making the bigger angle 50 and the smaller angle 130. I don't want you to rely on what the picture looks like to know what the angles are. All right, so what's a transversal? A transversal is a line that intersects two or more lines. And that's a transversal. Notice how it crosses. Have you noticed that we have now cut it into 8 angles? We went from 4 to 8. Can you see them? So we have more vocabulary. Corresponding angles. Which ones are the corresponding angles? Those are the ones that line up the exact same in the top as they do in the bottom. So that would mean the 1 and the 5 would be corresponding, the 2 and the 6 would be corresponding, the 3 and the 7 would be corresponding, and the 4 and the 8 would be corresponding. Let me show you. Notice how they're corresponding. 2 and 6, 3 and 7, and 4 and 8. All corresponding. And notice corresponding angles are congruent. So we have vertical angles that are congruent and corresponding angles that are congruent. Here we go again. What about alternate interior angles? Well, if you think about it, these are the angles that are on the outside of the picture we've drawn, and these are the angles that are on the inside. So these are the interior angles, and the other ones are the exterior angles. So alternate interior angles, well, alternate means they go on opposite sides. They alternate. So that's why 4 and 5 are alternate interior, and 3 and 6 are alternate interior. Did I mention there was going to be vocabulary? The next, alternate exterior angles. Hopefully you can realize these are the exterior angles, and the ones that are alternate are ones that are opposite sides. So 2 and 7 are alternate exterior angles, and 1 and 8 are alternate exterior angles. So here we are. Name a pair of alternate exterior angles. You have two choices. Okay, did you guess 2 and 7? No? Did you guess 1 and 8? Okay, those are your choices. Name a pair of corresponding angles. You got 4 choices here. Did you name 1 and 5? No. Did you name 2 and 6? No. 3 and 7? No. What about 4 and 8? Those were your 4 choices. And if you named a pair of alternate interior angles, did you name 4 and 5 or 3 and 6? Once again, those were your 2 choices. I did mention there was going to be vocabulary, right? Good. Okay, so with this information, what we can do is realize that we can now find out what all the angles are simply by knowing one of them. If angle 2, or what was angle 2, is equal to 120 degrees, what's angle 3 going to be? Well, since they are vertical angles, they are congruent, and so it equals 120. What is angle 4 going to be? Well, since angle 3 and 4 are supplementary, if 3 is 120, 4 is going to become 60. And angle 1, well, if this is 60, vertical angles, that one's 60. And then if we knew that corresponding angles were congruent, if angle 1 is 60, angle 5 is 60. If angle 2 is 120, then angle 6 is 120. If angle 3 is 120, then angle 7 is 120. And if angle 4 is 60, you guessed it, angle 8 is going to be 60. See how to do that? Here you go. You try this one. Okay, I'm back. Did you get the answers? Did I get the answers? Yep, looks like I'm right. Okay, and that's what we want you to be able to know. Did I mention there was going to be vocabulary? All right, if you guys got any questions, make sure to ask me in class. Thanks, guys.